Welcome, I am 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐿 and your host for Keep Traveling Your African Vacation, the only podcast which brings you insightful information in the African tourism industry by real tourism professionals. Today we have another great episode to bring you, and I have the pleasure of introducing Cheryl Blackburn, who's owner-manager at 3 Tree Hill Lodge. Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Rail. I know it's a bit of a tongue twister. We have a lot of people that struggle with 3 Tree Hill.
I've written this out a couple of times already. You would think I would be able to get my tongue around it, but I'm glad that you mentioned that as well.
And it's one of the first questions that guests ask when they arrive at 3 Tree Hill is, where does the name come from? Because when you arrive here, there are a lot more than just 3 trees on the hill. And it's really, the name comes from the camp where General Warren, who was one of the British officers during the Battle of 𝐸𝐴𝐞𝐿, where he had his camp. And it's on the property where the lodge is situated. And because of the historical significance and the whole ethos of the lodge, that's why the lodge was named 3 Tree Hill.
Okay, that's very interesting. I was going to get there, but you've beaten me to it. Tell me about, where is the property located in South Africa?
So if you were driving from Johannesburg down to Durban, more or less halfway, you're going to come to Ladysmith and Bergville. So you've just dropped down the escarpment and you can see the Drakensberg Mountains on your right-hand side. And it's about 30 kilometers off the N3 highway towards the Drakensberg Mountains. And we overlook the hill 𝐸𝐴𝐞𝐿, and we are adjacent to the reserve, 𝐸𝐴𝐞𝐿 Nature Reserve, which is managed by 𝐸𝐸𝐿.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now tell me something about yourself. How did you end up in tourism? Was this always the plan?
It was. I'm afraid I was born into tourism. I was actually born in the Kruger National Park while my parents were working for National Parks Board, not on the conservation side. They were actually running Pretorius Corp Camp. But I think my love was really more on the nature side. And the whole way through school, I just knew I wanted to be working outdoors and I'd love to be a guide. And when I finished school, I was very lucky to get a job in one of the reserves in the Eastern Cape. And I managed to work my way up to becoming a field guide. And in those days, there weren't many female guides, so it was a little frowned upon. But I kept pushing and eventually managed to get back to the Kruger Park and worked in the private reserves adjacent to the Kruger in the Sabi Sands at a lodge called 𝐸𝐴𝐞𝐿. And we were with them for 10 years guiding there, and eventually opened up one of the camps in the Kruger National Park. Very passionate about conservation and wildlife, but eventually got the opportunity after leaving the Kruger, went up to Botswana, but then had the opportunity to own our own place. So we have a 50-year lease on the land, but we're able to run the business, and it's just been an incredible 20 years journey.
I can see it in your face that you really love what you're doing, because you got this big smile, and maybe the podcast listeners are not going to see this, but they'll hear it. And you've got a nice chirp in your voice as well. So you're definitely doing something that you love, right?
Absolutely. It's really a lifestyle. And when we first moved here, we just thought this is where we want to raise our kids. And at the time, we only had 2 children. And we bought just at the beginning of the 2008 recession, which was a disaster for tourism because we had absolutely no guests. So we thought, to keep ourselves busy, we'll have another 2 kids and they can maybe help us around the lodge. And so, it was just a perfect place to raise the kids. Wide open spaces, lots of animals, mountains to climb, just a really healthy, incredible, beautiful place for our family. And as we discovered, for visitors as well. The more and more families we started getting here, we realized that there are not many places where kids can really explore nature like this, but still have a certain amount of luxury and personalized service for the adults.
Cheryl, tell me, what makes your property different from other properties around you in the same area?
So there is really an incredible variety and diversity and selection of properties in the Drakensberg and the battlefields. And they're all really an incredible standard and so much choice. But I think really what sets ours apart is the small number of guests that you're sharing the space with. We only have 9 rooms. 6 of them can sleep 2 each, and 3 of them are family cottages. So I think it's really an exclusive experience. It's a very personalized experience. We take an interest in meeting every one of our guests and tailor-make their stay. We give them recommendations on where they want to go hiking, what activities would suit them.
Okay, when guests are leaving, what do they rave about?
The two things that they rave about the most are our staff. You really get a feeling of being relaxed, even though it's luxurious. Every one of our staff that the guests will interact with are really authentic. They're from the local village, so Zulu is their first language, but they can all converse in English, and they have a very open attitude to wanting to make the guest stay just really fantastic. So that's normally one of the first things that the guests will rave about. And the second thing is normally attention to detail. That might come from my OCD personality, wanting to make sure that everything is just right. But that's another thing that the guests really like, all the little touches of things that we've got in their rooms, or when they take a picnic out into the mountains. We really like to take care of every little thing for our guests.
Cheryl, since you live on the property, do you have a favorite spot where you can go after you've had a busy day, somewhere that you can sit, relax, and breathe?
Absolutely. And not just one spot. I can think of about 8 spots. And each one of those spots, I've either made a little clearing, or I've put a bench, or I've put a little story. I really try and encourage guests, and I've even marked them on a map so that guests who just want a 5-minute walk to a special spot or a 20-minute walk to a special spot can indeed do that. Whether they want to take a glass of wine and enjoy, or they want to take a full picnic, or if they're going on their mountain bike and want to break halfway along. It's just really, the views from our place are spectacular because we're not right up in the mountains. We're in the foothills of the Drakensberg. So we've really got a great overview of the whole mountain range, and I think that's really special.
Okay, and while we're talking about guests, what has been the most rewarding experience that you've had with a particular guest? And I'm sure there must be many, but perhaps one that really sticks to mind.
There have been many, and if I can think, we've had a lot of British guests that have come that have had relatives that were in the Boer War, and particularly in 𝐸𝐿𝐴, and they've possibly emailed us a couple of months before their trip with perhaps a handwritten letter or a diary with a clue as to whereabout they were stationed during the battle. And then our guide has delved into it and tried to find out more information. And when they get here, taking them to that exact gun position or site where their great-grandfather fought is very emotional, and it's been very rewarding seeing that.
I'm sure. And tell me, are there any sort of traditions, events, foods that your guests, when they come, they fall in love with?
So funny enough, one of our most popular recipes that guests almost always ask for, which possibly isn't very South African, or you don't think of it being South African, is our lentil curry. And I think most people think of the lentil curry, oh, that's a vegetarian nightmare. But for some reason, our recipes really, it tastes like meat. And almost all of our lunches are actually vegetarian or vegan without people even knowing it. The lentil curry is definitely one of them. But it doesn't mean that we don't have enough meat. We are based on a Brahmin cattle farm, so our meat is straight off the farm, and it is unbelievable.
I would expect so. And the curry coming out of KwaZulu-Natal is no secret as well. You obviously have a number of staff, and staff are an important aspect to any business, but more so in the travel industry. Is there someone in particular from your staff or your community that really makes a big difference?
Gosh, it'd be so hard to pick out exactly one because they all form part of the bigger picture. And I think every single one of them, in their small way, will take something home, something that they've learnt at Three Tree Hill. So we are Fair Trade Tourism certified, which means that one of the things that we place a very big focus on is training and upliftment of our staff and fair practices with them. So for example, all of our staff are first aid trained, and we try to do them all every 2 years, if not every 3 years. Every single staff member is at least level 1 first aid trained. And then going home and being able to assist a neighbor whose child pulled over a boiling pot of water. One of our staff was able to go and assist quickly, get a bucket of cold water, put her arm into the cold water for 20 minutes, and then gave us a ring and we could help with the burn shield. And that really empowered that staff member. All the neighbors now, if they have a small first aid problem, the first thing they do is go to that particular staff member. I think every single one of our staff have made a difference in some way to someone else in the community down in the village here.
Sure. And while we're on that subject, let's talk a little bit about conservation. What is Three Tree Hill Lodge doing in the form of conservation in your area?
So we're neighboring an 𝐸𝐸𝐸 run reserve. So we can't get directly involved there, but we've got a great relationship with the warden and the conservation manager there. We're in constant communication with them. If we suspect or see any tracks of poachers, we immediately get in touch with them. We assist them with uniforms, binoculars. We've helped them with cameras, night cameras, to also try and limit poaching. So as much as we can do, we collaborate with them.
Now, for visitors that are coming through and staying with you, what sort of wildlife or nature experiences can they expect?
In the reserve, there are white rhino, giraffe, zebra, eland, hartebeest, wildebeest, waterbuck, many antelope species, jackal, caracal. The only ones that don't come over or under the fence are the rhino and the giraffes. So pretty much everything else we get to see on the cattle farm side as well. And we've got 25 kilometers of walking trails that guests can go on their own, on the safe side on the farm. But because of the hilly nature of the terrain, you almost always have a view into the reserves. So even on one of your own walks on the farm, you can sometimes get to spot giraffe and rhino on the other side.
And some of the smaller ones are more of the interesting ones, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. So lots of warthog, actually, that's probably what we see the most. Warthog, duiker, and jackal. Every single evening and every single morning, we can hear the jackal calling from the veranda, from the sundowner spot, somewhere where you're out on a walk in the afternoon. And I tell you, if you've heard that jackal call at sunset, it just gives you goosebumps. It's just what you want to hear when you're in Africa. It's a beautiful sound.
Cheryl, having been in the business or in the industry for the majority of your life, what are your hopes for the future of your property and the surrounding areas?
I really hope that tourism just continues to grow. We were very severely affected by our numbers since COVID, and we still haven't recovered. It's been 5 years and we're still nowhere near our 2019 occupancies. And for the longevity of and the conservation of the area, it's important that we continue to grow. I think what we'd really like to say is that KwaZulu-Natal is just the most extraordinary province to travel in as a South Africa or a foreigner. And I think just the bad press that we had since COVID, we had those incidences of looting and floods, but those were 5 years ago. We've grown since then. Even though the department may not be doing much about the roads, there are a lot of private people helping to fix the road. We're doing the road signs. We're all trying to do something. And I think the worst thing you can do in situations like this is not visit. You need to support these places that are struggling and help to spread the word, and just come and see for yourself, because there's just so much to offer in our entire province, from the battlefields to the mountains, the incredible game reserves, which are far better priced than the reserves up in the Lowveld. And then the beach, the warm water and the beach. It's just a province that has everything.
Yeah, I hope that through the podcast and a little bit of what I'm trying to achieve by pushing African tourism, I hope that will bring those clients to you. And I wish you all the best in the future as far as growing your clientele. But while we're on that subject, what would you say to someone coming from overseas who's a little bit nervous of traveling to Africa for the first time?
So I think if someone's already a little bit nervous, one of the things that we offer is a transfer service. And most often it's the driving, especially if they're coming from Europe and they've got to drive on the other side of the road and they've heard of potholes, then a transfer service. So we can collect them in Johannesburg, drop them off here. They spend the 3 days here, do the guided activities. We'll transfer them from here, perhaps to the Zulu battlefields, and they can do the whole collection of the African Safari Collective. That's actually a group of lodges that got together during COVID. We're all similar sort of size properties, 9 and 10 rooms, very personalized service. We all offer something slightly differently, but we offer that transfer service between each one of our properties. yeah, then they don't have anything to worry about and no need to be nervous.
Okay, great. So where can people find you online and follow your story?
So the best is just to go to our website, www.3treehill, the tongue twisted, .𝐸𝐸, and that's 3 spelt out, the number spelt out THREE and then TREEHILL.
I'm sure once you named it, then you had second thoughts about it afterwards and thought we could have gone with something easier. But I hope that people listening, I hope they'll pick up that name quickly, look at your website, and hopefully you will get a few more visitors coming through. But I know that you've been very generous in offering a prize giveaway. Would you, in your own words, tell us what you're going to be giving away?
Thanks, Rael, and thanks so much for inviting us and giving us this opportunity. We'd love to give one of the lucky listeners out there a 2-night stay at 3 Tree Hill for 2 people, and just put your name in the hat and go for the entry. And if you need advice on any other places to stay, if you want a KwaZulu-Natal itinerary, I'd be more than happy to help. We've traveled the province extensively, and I can give you from budget to super luxury if you want to add that on to the 2-night prize.
Thank you very much for that, Cheryl. That's very generous, and I hope that will not only bring the winners, but maybe they'll be bringing some guests through with them. So I hope it's a snowball kind of effect. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's really been a pleasure hearing about KwaZulu-Natal and feeling the energy that I'm getting from you. So thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity, Rael.
That was Cheryl Blackburn from 3 Tree Hill Lodge. Do not forget that fantastic prize giveaway. All the entry details can be found in the show notes of this episode, or head over to www.wildsunsets.travel/podcast. Tune in again next week when I'll be chatting to another great African tourism professional. My name is 𝐸𝐸𝐸, and consider this. A few years from now, you will not remember how much it cost you, but you will still remember the memories you made. Keep traveling.